All right, let's get into something really cool. We're talking about how to make plants naturally pest-proof, not by spraying them, but by changing what they're actually made of. We're basically going to build a biological engine inside the plant, one that, completely shuts down the dinner bell for pests.
So here's our game plan. We'll start with what the real problem with pests is. And spoiler, it's probably not what you think. Then we'll get to the solution, which is all about protein. After that, we'll get our hands dirty, so to speak, and build the fuel system for this engine, find its spark plug, and see how it all comes together to achieve something incredible called passive immunity.
Okay, first things first. We have to completely flip the script on how we think about pests. The old way of thinking is that pests are this enemy that we have to fight. But the science tells a very, very different story.
I mean, we've all been there, right? You walk out to your garden, you're feeling great, and then you see it. Your favorite plants are just covered in aphids or mites. It feels like an attack, like you're in this constant losing battle.
But what if it isn't an attack at all? What if your plant is actually sending out a signal, a chemical invitation that pests are just programmed to respond to? Now that is a total shift in perspective.
Okay, so get this. The science here is fascinating and pretty simple. Sucking insects, your aphids, mites, whiteflies, they have really basic digestive systems. They literally cannot break down complex, complete proteins. So what do they eat? They feed exclusively on simple, unfinished nitrogen compounds, stuff like nitrates and ammonium, just floating around in the plant's sap. You can think of it like this. That free nitrogen is basically pest junk food, easy to digest, and exactly what they're looking for.
So, once you realize that pests are just nature's cleanup crew for this plant-based junk food, the solution becomes crystal clear. The answer isn't to kill the pest, it's to stop serving them dinner.
This one sentence says it all. This is the entire philosophy. It's not about warfare, it's about plant metabolism. Our entire goal is just to help the plant finish its own internal job of building complete proteins.
And this slide just nails the concept. On the left, you've got a plant whose sap is just full of free nitrates. It's like a giant, flashing neon sign for pests that says, "Free buffet here." But on the right, you have a plant that's taken all that nitrogen and built it into complex, complete proteins. To a pest, that plant is basically made of plastic. It's indigestible. It becomes invisible to them.
So how do we get there? Well, we need to build the first part of our engine, the fuel system. To build all these proteins, a plant needs nitrogen and amino acids, and we want to give it the absolute cleanest, most efficient fuel we can find.
Now, a lot of traditional systems use something called Fish Amino Acid, or FAA, and it works for sure, but it can come with some baggage, like potential heavy metals or just going bad. The sources we're looking at point to a much cleaner, superior veganic option, amino acids that come from hemp seed press cake. It's stable, it's effective, and it's totally plant-based.
So, when you press hemp seeds for their oil, what's left over is this stuff called press cake. And people used to think of it as waste, but it's actually a biological gold mine. It contains a whopping 30 to 50% pure protein. This is the raw material for our entire nitrogen engine.
Now, we can't just toss this cake at the plant's roots. All those amazing proteins are locked up in long, complex chains. We have to pre-digest them, and the process for that is called enzymatic hydrolysis. The best way to think about it is using these tiny biological scissors to precisely unzip those proteins into perfect bite-sized amino acids that the plant can just drink right up.
And the tool, the molecular scissors we use for the job, is this incredible stuff from Korean natural farming called Nuruk. It's a starter made from wheat that's just teeming with fungal enzymes. And these enzymes are absolute experts at unzipping the proteins in that hemp cake. This is what unlocks all that amazing nitrogen and turns it into the perfect fuel for our plant. Okay, so we've got our clean, high-octane fuel, but any powerful engine needs a spark to actually ignite that fuel and make it go. Well, for the plant's protein engine, that spark is a very specific trace mineral.
This right here, this is the absolute linchpin of the whole system. Deep inside the plant is an enzyme called nitrate reductase. Its entire job is to grab those free nitrates, that pest junk food, and convert them into complete proteins. But here's the catch. It will not turn on, it won't do a thing without one crucial cofactor, the trace element molybdenum. Molybdenum is the spark plug. No spark, no engine.
So where on earth do we find this critical spark plug? Well, nature has already provided the perfect source. Brazil nuts are, hands down, the densest biological source of molybdenum you can find. But just like with the hemp cake, that precious mineral is locked up tight inside the nut's proteins. So guess what? We bring back our trusty enzyme toolkit to set it free. And here is the actual recipe, the protocol for creating this molybdenum activator. It's surprisingly simple. You just grind up about 200 grams of Brazil nuts, mix them into a liter of warm non-chlorinated water, and then you add about 20 grams of Nuruk. The enzymes get to work unzipping the proteins and releasing all that molybdenum into the water. Let it sit for about a week, strain it, and that liquid, that's your spark plug. That is the ignition key for your engine.
So now we have all the pieces, right? We have the clean fuel from the hemp cake, and we have the molybdenum spark plug from the Brazil nuts. Let's see what happens when we put it all together and finally turn the key on this engine.
With this engine humming along, the plant goes through this incredible internal transformation. It's not like it grows thorns or creates some kind of poison. It's much more elegant than that. Its very chemistry changes. It becomes, as the source material says, invisibly armored.
And this really shows the before and after. Before, the plant's sap was a soup of free nitrates, basically screaming to every pest for miles around that dinner was served. But after, with the engine running, all that nitrogen gets locked up into complete proteins. The food source is gone, the plant is no longer a vulnerable target, it's a resilient fortress.
So this is the big takeaway. By focusing on the plant's internal health, on its own metabolism, you create a state of passive immunity. Pests just aren't an issue because you've taken their food off the menu. The need for pesticides, it just evaporates. So let's just run through the logic one more time because it's so elegant. It all starts with one biological fact. Pests can't digest complete proteins. So our goal is simple. Help the plant finish making them. We give it a super clean, veganic fuel from enzyme-digested hemp cake. We ignite the process with that essential molybdenum spark plug from fermented Brazil nuts, and the result is a truly healthy plant that has its own built-in immunity.
You know, this whole idea really changes the game. It shifts our focus from constantly fighting symptoms with sprays and powders to building deep, resilient health from the inside out. And that powerful idea leaves us with a really exciting question to chew on. What else could we transform in the way we grow our food?